Now, there are tons of vehicles that we remember through our lifetime, but none so notable as, well, what sits behind me. Hey, welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now, the big minivan craze, well, has seen its kind of shelf life. Back in the 80s when I was growing up, the minivan was really sought after. SUVs really hadn't even been invented really for the average day folk. Now, what minivans really delivered was, heck, all that acreage for the little ones. It just felt so big. For parents, that reassurance that pretty much they could put all the kids and the gear, especially on those trips. Now, where have we come? Well, a long way from the good old panel vans that we remember with the wood grain. Really what we got now is a little bit more style and, heck, a lot more innovation. Now, when you hear the word minivan, you probably don't get real excited, but for this family of 6, man, it gets me tickled. All because of these sliding doors and the amount of space that waits inside. Now, this here is the 2017 Chrysler Pacifica. Now, it's come a long way considering it used to be more of an SUV-like blend, and it did kind of always had that minivan-like quality. So what they've done now is pretty much harness that, really giving that stylized, typical silhouette. Now, we've come from a long way from the 80s, which had paneling and pretty much box-like design, and back then, it only had one sliding door. This is truly revolutionary. Now, what does the reintroduction of the Pacifica model do for the minivan lineup? Well, it gets us re-excited, re-energized with this segment. We've had the Dodge Caravan and Chrysler Town & Country for decades. Why not add, well, a new name and a model to this segment? Now, if you look at the profile, you're familiar with the Honda Odyssey and even the remodeling of the Nissan Quest, and what they have done well is maybe made those segments a little bit bigger, really from the outside. And that's what they do here on the Pacifica. Really give it new stylized lines and pretty much that fluid motion when the vehicle's not even moving. And you see that really across the window segment here. As you sweep to the back, this angle really contrasting with the back end, really giving it kind of a sweeping aerodynamic kind of look. And for this dad who doesn't really want to be confused with a grocery go-getter, I want something at least a little sporty. With this rekindling of my once love affair with the good old minivan, it's great to grab a cup of coffee, get in the vehicle, and remember the good old days of taking the kids to school, dropping off their soccer matches, and pretty much taking me where they want to go. Now, continue that sport atmosphere, pretty much coming right down the vehicle, sweeping around to the back. The first thing you'll notice is that shark-like fin when it comes to the antenna for the radio, satellite radio, and all of that. Now, the spoiler, they didn't forget it. Pretty much right here, sweeping down the side, really adding a whole bunch more wow factor to this back end. Now, for any minivan, one stylized feature you're always going to find is right here across the back. The huge amount of glass, because after all, you want to be able to see out that back with all those little heads in the way. Now, as for safety, there's of course tons of it here. The backup sensors, the backup camera, and that kind of collision alert. One particular time, backing up, there was actually a bush in the way. Didn't really see it. Well, it saw it before me and even stopped on the brakes, only going half a mile an hour, so it wasn't really jarring at all. Now, what's great is this is the limited model, going to have a lot of extra features. This one being a power rear hatch. Now, what's great is there is a button on your fob, of course you can do. There's one here down low on the handle, and there is one here if you get in the way, wiggle just a little bit, it's going to beep and come up, really allowing you to do it all hands-free. Now, those same features can be found even on the sliding doors. Simply go over there and make a little motion, they're going to open up for you as well. One thing you'll notice right away with the minivans as well, they should drop the mini and pretty much, well, call them vans because there's nothing small about them. Heck, the numbers really creep up into the full-size segment, really competing with the likes of, well, bigger SUVs. Now, by the numbers, I like the fact this wheelbase is fairly stretched, around 121 inches. Overall length, around about 203 inches. What's great about that is those are great numbers when it comes to interior volume, one of the biggest things that goes with minivans. Now, when you look at the wheels, this specifically on the Limited is going to be creeping up there in some nice size wheels, specifically 20 inches at the corners. Now, though this vehicle has full-size numbers compared to an SUV, one number that's a lot more minimal is ground clearance. This vehicle just over 5 inches, making the step-in height, well, fairly minimal. Now, one thing about the sliding doors, these are power on this particular model, meaning there's, well, several ways to get that to go. One on the key fob, 2 buttons corresponding to both sides. Simply come up, press the button, it's going to slide open. Or you do have the hands-free approach. Simply walk up, wave your leg around just a little bit to find the kind of actuator, and it's going to open right up. That's going to make this, well, vehicle so much easier to use. One thing you expect on a minivan is to have, well, anemic power under the hood, but you can't do that when you have such, well, big offerings. And what they offer here is definitely big, a 3.6 liter V6 engine. That's going to deliver around 287 horses and 262 foot-pounds of torque. That's going to give you a lot of pep in your step, and really you're going to notice that with the first tap of the gas. We found this vehicle very nimble, well, and light on its feet. Now in the minivan, it's hard to find the business end because after all, the business is delivering the people, and back here, of course, their cargo. And what's great is it does it quite well. Now once this hatch is open, what you're going to find is a huge amount of space, even behind the third row. What you specifically see is around about 32 cubic feet, and that's accommodated with the lower cargo floor down here, almost like a little niche. That, of course, is going to accommodate these seats, which I'll show you in a minute. Now, behind the second row, this space is going to be almost triple the amount here you see. With all the seating laid flat, it's going to be about 5 times the amount than you see behind the third row. Now looking at the rear third row seat, there's a lot of operations between different vehicles and even between models. Now in this one, it is powered, making, again, life so much simpler. Now where you see that is in these buttons over here on the side. There's kind of 3 or 4 different buttons. One being normal, press that, they're going to go in the position you see here. Of course, you have the powered seat backs, which will allow you to accommodate which comfort zone you really want. The best one is really when you come to stow these. Simply press the button right here. Everything's going to handle it for itself. It's going to fold flat first, and then eventually it's going to tumble backwards. Now with the rear seating laid flat, one thing you may have to do is really look at these captain chairs and figure out if you need to, well, lay these flat too. That's great about this minivan, is there's really no removing of these seats, which you've probably seen those funny commercials with Jim Gaffigan. Now what I see is this is somewhat fairly easy. Now I've cheated just a little bit. What I've done is taken the front seat forward just a little bit. That's going to accommodate this kind of lower floor hatch. You really got to swing that up out of the way. Now the other thing you got to do is first lay this seat down flat. Real easy. What's great is the headrest really stays intact, just simply tumbles forward. Last thing is this little pull hatch. Now it took me a second to find it, but it simply says stow, so it's not that hard to figure out. Once you pull that, it's going to go over, it's going to give it a little bit, just a little bit of pressure, not much at all. Then it's going to lay flat. Then all you got to do, pull this out, press it down, locks into place. This is one of the simplest operations I've seen on any vehicle, especially considering you're leaving all the seating in place. Just hide it. All right, from the side, that we'll show you this a little bit better. Now, one thing to note is really take these seat backs in the front as far forward as they go. They're really going to kind of help you in this quick maneuvering. Next thing is remove the floor mats. Already done that. Pull this here. This is going to lock into place pretty much up here. That, once you've got to this situation, pretty much everything else is pretty straightforward. Now, one thing to note, make sure the seatbelt's really out of the way. Go ahead and put your armrest up. Then simply use the handle here, not the one up here. Simply pull this, lay it flat, then grab this handle here, pull it one time, and it's pretty much going to easily ease itself in. Now, once you do that, it's going to stay down. Unfold this, press down a hair, you're going to hear it click. That gives you a ton of room in here. Now, one thing you'll notice with any vehicle is the amount of kind of dirt you're going to track in here, especially this being a kid-friendly vehicle. As you can tell, I've kind of tracked in some extra mud here just doing this video shoot. So what's great is this vehicle comes with, well, its own vacuum cleaner. Nice central vac really built in here. Now, where you're going to find that is right here. You can pull it out. Now, there's some added tubing tucked in the back if you need it. What's also great is right here is your crevice tools and other tools that you can use maybe to get pet hair up. In this case, we're simply just going to use the attachment that's already connected. Now, have the car running. There is a power button. Simply press that. It's going to start right up. Now let's see how this does right here. Now, I don't know about you, but that's quite impressive. Now, with all the seating laid flat, it makes it easier to kind of film back here. Now, what's great is with these power seats, the back third row actually gets as much attention as really the front seat occupants. And where you're going to see that is in these power seats that we talked about earlier, really allowing you to fix your comfort back here. Now, what's great is the legroom numbers. This is going to be upwards of the 36 inches, even in the third row. Now, it's slightly elevated, but not really too high, so your knees aren't too much in your chest. Now as you go to the second row, around about 39, and in the front, of course, over 40 inches. What's great about that? Legroom numbers are plentiful all the way around. Adding these power adjustable seats makes it so much even more comfortable. Now the back of the vehicle is going to relate to that vacuum mentioned earlier. Up here it's going to be the compartment really to house that extra tubing and a little pump there if you need it to inflate things. Now down below is the operation for the vacuum. After all, you're going to kind of bring all that dirty grit somewhere. It's going to be right here. Now what's great about that is there's no bag there, nothing really to clean out. Instead, it's a nice little compartment. Simply unlatch it, pull this out. What you're going to first notice is a filter here. Really something that you're going to easily replace if you need to. But otherwise, it's pretty much just a trash can. There you can see the sand we took out. Simply take that, dump it out, put it back in. No bags to fiddle with. Now one thing about on a vehicle this big is really the airflow throughout the vehicle, the climate, comfort for all your passengers. And where you can find that here on this particular model is in this digital tri-zone system. Really all going to be displayed right here, different modes for the airflow and of course your temperature setting. What's great is it really puts out a lot of air. Simply press this, turn it on, and that air is really going to flow back here. Really good on hot and cold days. One thing the kids are really going to like and kind of kid tested is right here behind the front seats and these huge oversized screens. Now this is nothing new bringing entertainment to the minivan, but this has to be new. First thing is really all these different zones, all the connectability, of course, the USBs, the HDMIs. You can bring about any device in here and connect it to these screens. Even better, each screen is independent of one another. Even better, there's kind of built-in apps right here in the middle. They can play games while they're going down the road. Don't even have to bring anything with you, just simply use the screens. One thing I'll show you in a minute really is right up above, and that's a huge moon, sky, or sunroof, whatever you want to call it. It's going to open up just a little bit, let some air in, but pretty much glass, pretty much all the way down this vehicle, and a little small one there back for the third row. Now what's really great up here is really that captain's chair-like feel, this feeling like you're empowering a huge vehicle that, well, drives fairly easy. And it all starts right here in the front seat. First with the overall comfort, really the seat sculpting to the individual, nice armrest, not the center console, but really a dedicated armrest for both front occupants. Now both front seats are powered, giving you all the different ergonomics that you could possibly be looking for, and of course the to and fro that you need when it comes to that back support. One thing you're really going to like with the latest minivan craze is all the innovations that come with a lot of vehicles and right here on the minivan, starting with the huge over 8-inch touchscreen system. Now everything's real intuitive and, well, real easy to use. Now the climate control's going to be situated way up here. That's going to be your temperature gauges. And one thing I did notice with this one is the LCD is somewhat messed up here at the top. Now that could be just a little quirk on this particular model, but you might want to watch out that this doesn't happen on your own. Now when you look at this is your dual settings up front. Again, this is a tri-zone like system. Now there's tons of different windows for this particular screen. You've got the media connection, that's of course using your phone. You've got the various controls when it comes to your heated and cooled seats, your apps, your Wi-Fi system in here, tons of different connections here, and your navigation. This really being one of the easier systems to use. Now one thing I really wish they would use in the where to is when you go to do your address. Now each time we did this, we of course were in North Carolina. Every time I had to enter the city first, then enter the street. If I didn't do it in that order, I'd always have to search again. And one thing, I'm always going to be pretty much in the same city, just looking for a different street. So it'd be great if that was always defaulted until you changed it. Other than that, the whole system worked really well, and I like the fact that it connects quite well to my phone. Below the oversized screen is a few buttons when it comes to climate control and a little bit of audio selection as well. This all housed in this protruding area, making it barely a stretch to get to. Now what you'll find is a nice oversized knob for volume and tune select, a few safety functions here. Below, again, the dual zones, simply setting the temperature, and a nice knob here for the fan speed, which I truly like, making your comfort real easy to dial in. Now if you're used to a shifter on the column or on the floor where you're not going to find it, instead you're going to find more of this knob that's going to be your gear selector. Now it's really easy to use, put your foot on the brake and pretty much dial in your specific gear selection. One thing to be careful of though, when you're going back to park, is to not stop short. I've done it on a couple of occasions and pretty much you think you're in park and for a split second it's going to roll in reverse. Not a big deal because it really doesn't floor it, so you can simply put your foot on the brake and keep going to park. That's one thing just to be careful of. For connectivity, what you're going to find is your USB connection. That's going to relate to your entertainment system, and of course the auxiliary jack. Now I like this nice little storage area. Allows you to put your device here out of the way. If you need a little bit more storage, there's plenty right up front in this huge drawer that swings out. And there's going to be a coin holder here and just a really deep cavern that slopes back out of the way. Now once you tuck that back in, what you're going to notice way down here is some other connectivity. Now what I like about these is this is really a power supply and another power supply for USB. When you connect your device to this one via USB, it doesn't relate to the vehicle, which is great because how many times have you hooked a USB up, it overrides your media and just becomes cumbersome. Hook it up here, strictly power supply only. Now the reason for that huge drawer up there is probably because the center console isn't what you expect. No flipping open system here, but really just this simple tray that hides away, and there you got a nice little shallow area. Now one thing about this, I'm not a big fan of the ridges because if you are a big eater in the car, all the crumbs are going to end up here, meaning you have to take that vacuum in the back and vacuum right here. Now there's nice dual cup holders up here as well, and I like the fact that these have these nice rubber housings here, really grips the drink and holds it in place. For cruise control, this vehicle has two options. You got the old standard up here, simply press cruise, set the speed, and pretty much you're going to have to monitor the traffic. Now if you go with the adaptive cruise control, what's great about that is it's going to set the spacing based on what you select, and it's going to allow the vehicle to kind of sense the vehicle in front of you, brake as it needs to, and as the vehicles get out of the way, of course, resume the set speed. Now on the other side is for the various functions on the gauge cluster. Now it's going to be great because you can simply kind of scroll through there and there are tons of options, really all the information you could possibly want at your fingertips. Now the biggest one I really like is the digital speed readout. Now a lot of vehicles aren't doing this and I don't know why. It does have the analog system on the right and left, the tach and speedometer, but it also has that nice huge digital readout. That is so much easier to read than kind of looking at that old analog system. Now if you remember the good old minivans, they pretty much had non-operating windows, but these, well, they're more powered, and what's great, the press of a button, these are going to roll down like traditional windows, really allowing a lot of airflow versus the good old kind of vent system you remember from the good old days. Now even better is they have these nice built-in screens. That's going to allow you to have a little bit of sunshade. Now what's great is they're here on the second row and as well even for the third row occupants. That does for this edition of Road Warrior and a test drive behind the wheel of the 2017 Chrysler Pacifica, really reinvigorating the minivan market and kind of taking me away from that full-size SUV and reminding me how great a vehicle like this is. After all, it has those sliding power doors, great for those tight spots, that rear hatch offering a lot of space on the inside, and of course enough room for the whole family to climb inside and all that entertainment to go with it. One thing you also have to deliver is that power under the hood, really rivaling any other vehicle when it comes to that pep in its step. Now as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.